Captain Greg Hamilton stood on the bridge of the USS Sentinel and watched the stars through the main view screen. His ship was small compared to the massive vessels of other alien species, but it was his home. He had been in space for 20 years and he knew every corner of this frigate. Behind him, his crew worked quietly at their stations, checking systems and running diagnostics. The message from Earth Command had arrived 3 hours ago. The Krillak swarm was invading Viridian space, and the Galactic Council needed every ship they could get. Hamilton had volunteered immediately. This was humanity's chance to prove they belonged in the galaxy. Commander Lisa Grant walked up beside him. She was his first officer and had served with him for 8 years. Her face was tight with frustration. She crossed her arms and stared at the view screen. "They put us in the rear guard," she said. Her voice was flat and angry. "Admiral Vexthar doesn't think we're good enough to fight on the front lines." Hamilton nodded slowly. He had expected this. Humanity had only been part of the Galactic Council for 15 years. The other species still saw humans as weak and primitive. The Viridians had energy shields and particle weapons. The Luminae could manipulate gravity itself. What did humanity have? Old-fashioned missiles and railguns. "We knew this would happen," Hamilton said quietly. "They don't trust us yet. We have to earn their respect." Grant turned to look at him. Her eyes flashed with anger. She was a brilliant officer, but she hated being underestimated. Hamilton understood how she felt. Every human in the fleet felt the same way. "How are we supposed to earn their respect from the back of the formation?" she asked. "They'll never see what we can do if we're just watching from a distance." Hamilton allowed himself a small smile. He walked to his command chair and sat down. His fingers drummed on the armrest for a moment before he spoke. "They'll see," he said. "When the time is right, they'll see exactly what we can do." Lieutenant Kyle Morrison looked up from the weapons console. He was young, only 29, and eager to prove himself. His hands moved across the controls, checking the status of their missiles and railguns. "Captain, all weapons are ready," Morrison reported. "We could take on any of those Krillak ships right now." Hamilton appreciated the young officer's enthusiasm, but he knew better than to rush into battle. The Krillaks were dangerous. Their ships were alive, grown from organic material and covered in thick armor. Their weapons shot superheated plasma that could melt through steel in seconds. The Galactic Council was gathering its largest fleet in decades just to face them. "Patience, Lieutenant," Hamilton said. "We'll get our chance." The USS Sentinel joined the fleet near the edge of Viridian space. Hamilton watched as dozens of ships gathered together. There were massive Viridian dreadnoughts, their hulls gleaming silver in the starlight. The Luminae brought their crystal ships that seemed to shimmer and shift as they moved. Even the Kordath sent their heavy cruisers, bristling with missile pods. And then there was the USS Sentinel. Small, gray, and unremarkable, Hamilton could almost feel the other species looking at his ship and dismissing it. He had heard the whispers on the communication channels. The aliens wondered why humanity had even bothered to come. A transmission came through from the Viridian flagship. Admiral Vexthar's face appeared on the screen. He was tall and thin, with blue skin and 4 eyes. His expression made it clear what he thought of the human ship. "Human vessel," Vexthar said. His voice was cold and formal. "You will take position at the rear of the formation. Stay out of the way and do not interfere with our battle plan. Is that understood?" Hamilton kept his face neutral. He refused to show any emotion that might give the Admiral satisfaction. "Understood, Admiral," Hamilton replied. "We'll follow your orders." The transmission ended. Grant made a disgusted sound and turned away from the screen. Morrison clenched his fists at his console. The other crew members on the bridge exchanged angry glances. Hamilton understood their frustration, but he needed them to stay focused. "Listen to me," Hamilton said, raising his voice slightly so everyone could hear. "I know you're angry. I know you feel like we're being treated unfairly. But we have something they don't know about. Something that will change everything." Grant looked at him, and slowly her expression changed. Understanding dawned in her eyes. Hamilton nodded. "The cloak," she said softly. "The cloak," Hamilton confirmed. "No other species in this galaxy has stealth technology. They don't even know it's possible. We've kept it secret for a reason. Today we use it." Morrison's eyes widened with excitement. The other crew members sat up straighter at their stations. Hamilton could feel the mood on the bridge shifting from frustration to anticipation. The experimental cloaking device had been installed on the USS Sentinel 2 years ago. It bent light and sensor waves around the ship, making it completely invisible. The technology was humanity's most closely guarded secret. Earth Command had authorized its use only in extreme circumstances. This battle qualified. We take our position at the rear, Hamilton explained. We activate the cloak and follow the fleet without being seen. We watch the battle and wait for the right moment. When that moment comes, we strike. Grant nodded slowly. A smile spread across her face. It was a good plan. The aliens expected humanity to hide in the back and do nothing. Instead, they would be invisible, watching and waiting for the perfect opportunity. When do we activate the cloak? Grant asked. As soon as we're in position, Hamilton said. I want us invisible before the Krillaks arrive. No one needs to know where we are or what we're planning. The fleet began moving toward the Helix Nebula, where intelligence reports said the Krillaks would emerge. The USS Sentinel fell into position at the rear, exactly where Admiral Vexthar had ordered. Hamilton waited until the other ships were focused on their own preparations. Then he gave the order. Activate the cloaking device. The lights on the bridge dimmed slightly as power was redirected to the cloak. Hamilton felt a faint vibration through the deck as the device powered up. On the view screen, he could see the other ships in the fleet, but he knew they could no longer see the Sentinel. His ship had vanished from their sensors and from sight. Grant checked her console and nodded in satisfaction. The cloak was working perfectly. As far as the rest of the galaxy was concerned, the human ship had simply disappeared. We're invisible, Captain, she reported. No one can detect us. Hamilton leaned back in his chair and watched the fleet ahead of them. The Viridians had no idea that a human ship was following them, hidden in plain sight. Admiral Vexthar thought he had put humanity safely out of the way. He had no idea what was really about to happen. The waiting began. Hours passed as the fleet approached the nebula. Hamilton used the time to study the other ships and their formations. He watched how they moved and communicated. He looked for weaknesses in their battle plans. Knowledge was power, and right now humanity had the ultimate advantage. Grant stood beside his chair, arms crossed, watching the displays. Morrison kept checking his weapons, making sure everything was ready. The rest of the crew worked in focused silence. They all knew this was important. This was humanity's moment to show the galaxy what they could do. Finally, sensors detected movement in the nebula. The Krillaks were coming. Hamilton straightened in his chair and gripped the armrests. His heart beat faster, but his voice remained calm and steady. Battle stations, he ordered. Stay cloaked. Stay quiet, and wait for my command. The USS Sentinel remained invisible, a ghost ship following the fleet into battle. No one knew they were there. No one suspected what humanity was planning, and that was exactly how Hamilton wanted it. The Krillak swarm came out of the nebula like a plague of locusts. Greg Hamilton watched from the bridge of the USS Sentinel as hundreds of enemy ships emerged from the glowing clouds of gas and dust. Each ship was different, grown rather than built, with organic curves and ridges that looked like the shells of enormous insects. They moved in perfect coordination as if they shared one mind. Count, Hamilton said quietly. Lisa Grant checked her sensors. Her face went pale. She looked at Hamilton with concern in her eyes. 347 ships, she reported. They outnumber us almost 3-1. Kyle Morrison swore under his breath at the weapons console. Other crew members shifted nervously in their seats. Hamilton understood their fear. This was bigger than anyone had expected. But he kept his voice calm and steady. His crew needed him to be strong. Stay cloaked, he ordered. Keep monitoring everything. I want to know how they move and how they fight. The largest Krillak ship emerged last. It was massive, 10 times the size of the Viridian flagship. Its hull was covered in thick plates of dark brown armor that looked like beetle carapace. Hundreds of weapon ports dotted its surface, and strange organic tentacles writhed along its sides. This was the Hive ship, the mobile fortress that carried the Krillak's queen. Admiral Vexthar's voice crackled over the fleet communication channel. He sounded confident, even arrogant. Hamilton listened carefully to every word. All ships, battle formation Delta, Vexthar commanded. We will meet them head-on and show these insects the power of the Galactic Council. For glory and honor, the Council fleet moved into position. The massive Viridian dreadnoughts formed the center line, their particle cannons charging with blue light. The Lumini ships took positions on the flanks, their crystal hulls shimmering as they prepared their gravity weapons. The smaller cruisers and destroyers spread out to cover the gaps. The Krelax answered with their own formation. Their ships formed into clusters like swarms of bees, each group supporting the others. Hamilton watched the pattern carefully. He had studied insect behavior back on Earth. Bees, ants, termites, all of them worked as collectives. The Krelax seemed to operate the same way. They're using swarm intelligence, Hamilton said, thinking out loud. Each cluster is independent, but they're all connected somehow. Look at how they move together. Grant studied her display and nodded. She could see what he meant. The Krelax ships weren't just following orders from a central command. They were sharing information instantly, reacting to threats as one organism. Neural network? She suggested. Most likely, Hamilton agreed. Which means there has to be a central node. A brain that controls the whole network. The first shots of the battle lit up space. The Viridian dreadnoughts fired their particle cannons, sending beams of superheated energy across the void. The beams struck the Krelax ships, burning through organic armor and leaving smoking holes. Several enemy ships exploded in bursts of green fire, but the Krelax didn't retreat. They charged forward, firing streams of bioplasma from their weapons. The plasma bolts splashed against the Viridian shields, draining their energy. When the shields failed, the plasma burned through metal hulls like acid. The battle became chaos within minutes. Ships on both sides fired everything they had. Explosions lit up the darkness. Debris scattered in all directions. The Council fleet fought hard, but the Krelax swarm tactics were overwhelming. For every enemy ship destroyed, 2 more took its place. Hamilton watched it all from his invisible position behind the lines. The USS Sentinel drifted through the battlefield like a ghost, observing but not participating. He knew his crew wanted to fight. Morrison's hands hovered over the weapons controls, ready to fire, but Hamilton held them back, not yet. Not until he understood the enemy's strategy. A Viridian cruiser exploded off the port side, hit by multiple plasma bolts. Its hull broke apart in a shower of metal and fire. Hamilton saw escape pods launching, but several were destroyed before they could reach safety. He felt anger rising in his chest, but he forced it down. Emotion wouldn't help anyone right now. The Council fleet is losing, Grant said quietly. Her voice was tense. They're taking heavy casualties, she was right. In the first 30 minutes of battle, the Council had lost 8 ships. The Krelax had lost twice that number, but they still had overwhelming numbers, and their swarm tactics were wearing down the organized formations of the Council fleet. The Lumini ships used their gravity weapons to crush entire clusters of Krelax vessels, but the enemy simply regrouped and attacked from different angles. The Kordath missile cruisers launched wave after wave of warheads, but the Krelax point defense systems shot most of them down. Nothing seemed to work. Admiral Vexthar's flagship took a direct hit. Hamilton saw the great dreadnought's shields flicker and fail. Plasma bolts struck the hull, melting through armor plating. The ship listed to one side, venting atmosphere and debris. Vexthar's voice came over the communication channel again. This time he didn't sound confident. He sounded desperate. All ships fall back to defensive positions. We need reinforcements. Where are the reserve units? There were no reserve units. This was everyone. The Council had committed its entire fleet to this battle, and they were losing. Hamilton continued to study the Krelax formation. His eyes tracked the movement of the hive ship at the center of the enemy fleet. It hung back, protected by layers of smaller vessels. But something about it caught his attention. There were patterns in how the other ships moved in relation to the hive ship. Subtle timing, coordinated shifts in position. The hive ship, Hamilton said suddenly. That's the neural center. That's where the network is controlled from. Grant looked at her sensors, analyzing the data. Her eyes widened as she saw what Hamilton had noticed. You're right, she said. Every ship in the swarm is synchronized with the hive ship. There's a slight delay in their movements, like they're receiving instructions. If we could destroy the hive ship, the swarm would lose coordination, Hamilton finished. They'd still fight, but they wouldn't work together anymore. Morrison turned around in his chair, hope in his eyes. He had been watching good people die for the past hour. He wanted to fight back. Can we reach it? Morrison asked. That thing is surrounded by hundreds of enemy ships. Hamilton studied the tactical display. The hive ship sat at the rear of the Krelax formation, protected by multiple defensive layers. No normal ship could get through. The enemy would detect any attack and intercept it long before it reached the target. But the USS Sentinel wasn't a normal ship. They were invisible. The Krelax had no idea they were there. We can reach it, Hamilton said quietly. We're already behind their lines. They can't see us. He zoomed in on the hive ship, studying its structure. The armor was thick at the front and sides, but the rear section looked different. There was a bulge near the base, covered in thin membrane instead of heavy plating. It pulsed with a faint blue light. There, Hamilton said, pointing at the screen. That's the neural cluster. That's where the network is controlled. It's vulnerable. Grant leaned closer, analyzing the target. She ran calculations in her head, checking distances and firing solutions. Finally, she nodded. We can hit it, she confirmed. One good strike with our railguns and missiles should be enough to damage the neural cluster. Maybe even destroy it, Morrison grinned. His hands moved to the weapons controls, ready and eager. The rest of the crew straightened at their stations, waiting for orders. They all knew what this meant. They were going to attack. Another council ship exploded on the view screen. The fleet was dying. Admiral Vexthar was calling for retreat, but there was nowhere to run. The Krillaks had surrounded them. Hamilton made his decision. He stood up from his chair and looked around at his crew. They had trained for this. They were ready. Helm, bring us around, Hamilton ordered. Position us directly behind the hive ship, within firing range of that neural cluster. Morrison, prepare all weapons. When we decloak, I want everything we have hitting that target simultaneously. Yes, sir, Morrison replied, his voice filled with excitement. The USS Sentinel turned silently through space, invisible to enemy sensors. It glided past Krillak ships that had no idea a human vessel was moving among them. The crew worked with focused intensity, preparing for the most important moment of their lives. Grant stood beside Hamilton, watching the distance close. Her hand rested on the console, fingers ready to disable the cloak. She looked at him and saw the determination in his eyes. This is going to change everything, she said softly. Once we reveal the cloak, they'll all know what we can do. Hamilton nodded. He understood. This wasn't just about winning one battle. This was about showing the galaxy that humanity deserved respect, that humans were not weak or helpless, that they belonged among the stars. I know, he said. That's exactly what we're going to do. The USS Sentinel moved into position, hovering less than 2 kilometers from the hive ship's vulnerable neural cluster. No alarm sounded. No enemy ships turned to face them. They were completely undetected. Hamilton took a deep breath. He gripped the armrest of his chair and gave the order that would change humanity's place in the galaxy forever. Decloak and fire. The shuttle ride to the Viridian flagship was quiet. Greg Hamilton sat alone in the passenger compartment, watching the destroyed Krillak ships drift past the window. Debris fields stretched for thousands of kilometers. Pieces of organic armor and twisted metal floated in the void, silent monuments to the battle that had just ended. He thought about what came next. The battle was over, but the consequences were just beginning. Humanity had revealed its most closely guarded secret. The cloaking technology would change galactic politics forever. Some species would want to be allies. Others would see humans as a threat. Hamilton had started something that could not be stopped. The shuttle docked with the flagship, and Hamilton stepped out into a corridor filled with Viridian crew members. They stopped what they were doing and stared at him. Some touched their foreheads in a gesture of respect. Others simply nodded. Hamilton felt uncomfortable with the attention, but he accepted it gracefully. Admiral Vexthar met him personally in the conference room. The tall alien looked different up close. His blue skin was darker in some places, scarred from old battles. His 4 eyes studied Hamilton with genuine curiosity and respect. Captain Hamilton, Vexthar said, gesturing to a seat. Please sit. We have much to discuss. Other commanders were present as well. The Lumini representative floated in a containment field, her crystalline body reflecting rainbow colors. The Kordath commander stood in the corner, his thick armor making him look like a walking tank. Representatives from a dozen other species filled the room. Hamilton took his seat and waited. He knew they would have questions. Lots of questions. Vexthar did not waste time. He activated a holographic display that showed the battle from multiple angles. He zoomed in on the moment when the USS Sentinel appeared behind the hive ship. This technology, Vexthar said, pointing at the display. Your ship appeared from nothing. Our sensors detected no energy signature, no spatial distortion. It was completely invisible. I have never seen anything like it. Hamilton nodded slowly. There was no point in denying it. Everyone had seen what happened. We call it a cloaking device, Hamilton explained. It bends light and sensor waves around the ship. To an outside observer, the ship does not exist. It has been in development for several years, but this was the first time we have used it in actual combat. The Lumini representative spoke, her voice like wind chimes. Her translator converted her musical language into standard galactic. "This changes everything," she said. "With such technology, a small force could attack anywhere, anytime, without warning. The strategic implications are enormous." Hamilton saw concern in the eyes of several commanders. They were thinking about what humans could do with this technology. If one small ship could destroy a hive ship, what could a fleet of cloaked vessels do? The possibilities were frightening. "I understand your concern," Hamilton said carefully, "but humanity has no intention of using this technology for conquest. We developed it for defense and for situations exactly like today. We wanted to be able to protect ourselves and our allies." The Kordath commander stepped forward. His voice was deep and rough, like gravel grinding together. "Words are easy," he growled. "Actions matter. Today you saved us. But tomorrow? How do we know you will not use this weapon against us?" It was a fair question. Hamilton had known someone would ask it. Trust had to be earned, and humanity was still new to the galactic community. "You do not know," Hamilton admitted. "Just like I do not know if your species will attack us someday. Trust has to start somewhere. We chose to reveal our technology today to save lives. That should tell you something about our intentions." Admiral Vexithar raised one hand, calling for calm. The other commanders settled down, though Hamilton could still feel their tension. This was a delicate situation, and one wrong word could turn allies into enemies. "The Galactic Council will need to discuss this at length," Vexthar said, "but that is a matter for politicians and diplomats. Right now I want to focus on what you did today. You saved this fleet, Captain. You saved thousands of lives. For that you have my personal gratitude and respect." The tension in the room eased slightly. Other commanders nodded in agreement. Whatever concerns they had about the cloaking technology, they could not deny that humanity had proven itself in battle. The Lumine representative spoke again, her voice softer this time. "Tell us, Captain," she said. "How did you know where to strike?" "The hive ship was heavily armored, yet you found its weakness and destroyed it with a single attack." Hamilton smiled slightly. This was easier ground. This was about tactics and strategy, things he understood well. "I watched the battle carefully," he explained. "I noticed that all the Krillax ships moved in perfect coordination. That kind of synchronization requires a neural network, a single mind controlling multiple bodies. On Earth we have insects that work the same way. Bees, ants, termites. They all share information through chemical signals or neural connections." He brought up the holographic display and pointed to the hive ship. "The hive ship was the control center," Hamilton continued. "All the other ships were connected to it. When I studied the hive ship structure, I found the neural cluster at the rear. It was protected by thin membrane instead of heavy armor. That made it vulnerable. Destroying it severed the connection to all the other ships." The Kordath commander grunted with approval. He understood military thinking. Finding and exploiting an enemy weakness was the mark of a good commander. "You studied Earth insects to understand alien tactics?" the commander asked. "That is clever. Humans have been fighting wars for thousands of years," Hamilton said. "We have learned to adapt, to find creative solutions when we are outnumbered or outgunned. That is how we survived on our world, and that is how we will survive in the galaxy." Admiral Vexthar leaned back in his chair, all four eyes focused on Hamilton. The Viridian admiral was reassessing everything he thought he knew about humans. They were not primitive or weak. They were resourceful and dangerous in ways he had not considered. "The Council will want to formally recognize humanity contribution today," Vexthar said. "There will be ceremonies and awards. But more importantly, there will be discussions about military cooperation. Many species will want to form alliances with Earth. Your cloaking technology makes you a valuable partner." Hamilton nodded. He had expected this. Humanity had been trying to establish strong alliances for years with limited success. Now suddenly everyone would want to be their friend. The irony was not lost on him. "Earth will consider all proposals carefully," Hamilton said diplomatically. "We want to be good partners to the Council. But we also want to make sure any agreements are fair and mutually beneficial." The meeting continued for another hour. The commanders asked detailed questions about human tactics, ship design, and military doctrine. Hamilton answered what he could without revealing classified information. It was a delicate balance between transparency and security. Finally, Admiral Vexthar stood and extended his hand in the human gesture of respect. Hamilton shook it, noting the firm grip. "You have earned the respect of the Galactic Council today, Captain," Vexthar said. "I look forward to fighting beside humanity in future battles. May our alliance be long and prosperous." "May it be so," Hamilton replied. The shuttle ride back to the USS Sentinel gave Hamilton time to process everything that had happened. In one day, humanity's position in the galaxy had transformed completely. They were no longer the weak newcomers to be dismissed and ignored. They were now a major military power with technology that others feared and desired. Lisa Grant was waiting for him when he returned to the bridge. She could read his expression and knew the meeting had been intense. "How did it go?" she asked. Hamilton sat down in his command chair with a sigh. He felt tired, more emotionally than physically. The weight of responsibility pressed down on him. "They respect us now," he said. "But they also fear us. We have become powerful, and power makes people nervous." Grant nodded. She had expected as much. Power always came with complications. "Earth Command is going to have their hands full," she said. "Every species in the galaxy will want to negotiate with us now. Some will offer friendship. Others will offer threats. We are going to have to be very careful about who we trust." "I know," Hamilton agreed. "But that is a problem for the diplomats. We did our job. We proved that humanity deserves a seat at the table. What happens next is up to people smarter than us." Kyle Morrison turned around from his console, still grinning. The young officer was enjoying every minute of their newfound fame. "Captain, we are getting messages from all over the fleet," Morrison reported. "Everyone wants to congratulate us. Some are asking for autographs." Hamilton could not help but smile at that. His crew deserved to enjoy this moment. They had earned it. "Tell them thank you," Hamilton said. "And tell them the USS Sentinel is proud to serve alongside them." Grant leaned close and spoke quietly so only Hamilton could hear. "This is just the beginning," she said. "We have opened a box that cannot be closed. There is no going back now." Hamilton looked out at the stars through the viewscreen. She was right. Everything had changed. Humanity would never be underestimated again. But with that recognition came new dangers and new responsibilities. The galaxy was watching now. 6 months had passed since the Battle of Helix Nebula. Greg Hamilton stood in his new office at Earth Command headquarters and looked out the window at the blue planet below. So much had changed in such a short time. He was no longer just a ship captain. He was now Commodore Hamilton, commander of the Human Expeditionary Fleet. The promotion had come with responsibilities he had never imagined. He oversaw the construction of 12 new stealth frigates, all equipped with advanced cloaking technology. He trained new crews and developed tactical doctrines. He attended endless meetings with politicians and diplomats from dozens of alien species. His life had become a whirlwind of activity. But he missed the bridge of the USS Sentinel. He missed the simplicity of having one ship and one crew to worry about. Command was lonely at the top. A knock at the door interrupted his thoughts. Lisa Grant entered, wearing the uniform of a captain. She had taken command of the USS Sentinel after Hamilton's promotion. The ship was in orbit above Earth, undergoing repairs and upgrades after the battle. "Good morning, Commodore," Grant said with a slight smile. She still was not used to calling him by his new rank. "Lisa," Hamilton greeted her warmly. "How are the repairs coming?" "Almost finished," she reported. "The Sentinel will be ready for duty in 3 days. Kyle Morrison is doing well as my first officer. The crew is eager to get back out there." Hamilton nodded. He was proud of Morrison. The young officer had matured quickly after the battle. He had learned that there was more to command than just firing weapons. Hamilton had recommended him for the promotion personally. "That is good to hear," Hamilton said. "I am assigning the Sentinel to patrol the Outer Rim. Intelligence reports suggest the Krillax are regrouping out there. Queen Zarkith survived the battle, and she is not happy with us." Grant's expression turned serious. She had read the same reports. The Krillax Queen had sworn revenge against humanity, blaming them for her defeat. She was rebuilding her forces and looking for an opportunity to strike back. "How credible is the threat?" Grant asked. "Very credible," Hamilton replied. "The Krillax do not forget or forgive. We humiliated them. They will want payback. We need to be ready. He walked to his desk and pulled up a star map on the holographic display. Red markers indicated Krillak's activity in the outer rim. There were more markers than Hamilton liked to see. They are gathering their forces here, Hamilton said, pointing to a cluster of systems far from Council space. If they attack again, they will come in larger numbers and they will be prepared for our tactics. We cannot rely on surprise anymore. Grant studied the map carefully. She saw the problem immediately. The Krillaks were learning. They would adapt their strategies to counter human stealth technology. The next battle would not be as easy as the first. What about our allies, she asked. The Viridians and the others promised military cooperation. Will they help if the Krillaks attack? Hamilton's expression darkened slightly. That was a complicated question. Some will help, he said carefully. Admiral Vexthar has been true to his word. The Viridians have offered joint training exercises and intelligence sharing, but other species are more cautious. They fear humanity's growing power. Some council members have even suggested restrictions on our cloaking technology. Grant's jaw tightened with anger. She had expected gratitude, not fear. Humanity had saved the council fleet, and now some species wanted to limit their capabilities. It was insulting. That is ridiculous, she said. We proved we can be trusted. We used the cloak to help them, not hurt them. I agree, Hamilton said. But fear is not rational. Some species see us as a potential threat. They worry that if humans can appear anywhere at any time, no one is safe. They want assurances and safeguards. What did Earth Command tell them? Grant asked. The diplomatic answer, Hamilton replied with a slight smile. We assured them that humanity has no aggressive intentions. We agreed to limited technology sharing with trusted allies. But we made it clear that we will not disarm ourselves or abandon our defensive capabilities. We worked too hard to get here. Grant nodded in approval. That was the right approach. Humanity needed to be strong and confident, not apologetic for their success. A priority message appeared on Hamilton's desk display. He read it quickly, and his expression grew grim. Grant saw the change and stepped closer. What is it? She asked. Krillak's activity has increased dramatically in Sector 7, Hamilton said. Multiple scout ships have been detected near the border. Intelligence believes they are preparing for a major operation. Grant looked at the star map again. Sector 7 was close to several human colonies. If the Krillaks attacked there, thousands of civilians would be in danger. We need to respond, she said urgently. We cannot let them threaten our people. I know, Hamilton agreed. I am ordering the fleet to deploy immediately. The Sentinel will lead the advance force. You will have 3 other stealth frigates under your command. Find the Krillak staging area and report back. Do not engage unless absolutely necessary. We need intelligence more than we need victories right now. Grant straightened to attention. This was what she had been waiting for. A real mission, not just patrols and training exercises. Understood, Commodore, she said formally. The Sentinel will not let you down. I know you will not, Hamilton replied. He stood and walked around his desk to stand in front of her. For a moment, the formality dropped away, and they were just 2 old friends. Be careful out there, he said quietly. The Krillaks will be looking for us this time. They know what we can do. They will be prepared. We will be ready, Grant promised. She paused, then added, Do you ever miss it? Being out there instead of stuck behind a desk? Hamilton smiled sadly. He looked out the window at Earth again, then back at Grant. Every single day, he admitted. But this is where I am needed now. Someone has to coordinate the big picture. Someone has to make the hard decisions. I would rather it be me than someone who does not understand what our crews go through. Grant understood. Leadership meant sacrifice. Hamilton had given up the thing he loved most so that humanity could have the leadership it needed. She respected him even more for that. Take care of the Sentinel for me, Hamilton said. She is a good ship. She deserves a good captain. I will, Grant promised. She saluted formally, then turned and left the office. Hamilton returned to the window and watched as Grant's shuttle descended toward the spaceport. In a few hours, the USS Sentinel would depart on its new mission. Hamilton felt a pang of longing. He wanted to be on that ship standing on the bridge where he belonged, but he had responsibilities now that went beyond one ship. The human expeditionary fleet was growing. More ships were being built. More crews were being trained. Humanity was becoming a major military force in the galaxy, and someone had to guide that growth responsibly. A communication came through from Admiral Vexthar. The Viridian appeared on the holographic display, his 4 eyes showing concern. "Commodore Hamilton," Vexthar said, "I have heard about the Krillax activity in Sector 7. The Council is mobilizing a response fleet. We request that human forces coordinate with our operations. We are already deploying," Hamilton replied. "Captain Grant is leading our advance force. We will share all intelligence with Council forces." Vexthar nodded with approval. In the 6 months since the battle, he and Hamilton had developed a genuine friendship. The Viridian Admiral had proven himself trustworthy and honorable. "The Queen seeks revenge," Vexthar said. "She will not rest until she has struck back at humanity. You must be prepared for anything." "We are," Hamilton assured him. "Humanity has faced existential threats before. We survived them all. We will survive this too." After the communication ended, Hamilton sat down at his desk and pulled up reports from across human space. New colonies were thriving. Trade was expanding. Earth's economy was growing stronger thanks to new alien partnerships. The people of Earth were optimistic about the future for the first time in generations. But Hamilton knew the truth. The galaxy was dangerous. The Krillax were regrouping. Other threats lurked in the darkness between the stars. Humanity had proven itself once, but that was just the beginning. The real test was still to come. He thought about the crew of the USS Sentinel, now preparing to face unknown dangers in the Outer Rim. He thought about Lisa Grant, taking command of the ship he loved. He thought about Kyle Morrison, learning what it meant to be a leader. They were counting on him to make the right decisions from Earth Command. Hamilton pulled up the deployment orders for the entire fleet. 12 stealth frigates, 5 cruisers, and 2 carriers. It was impressive by human standards, but tiny compared to the forces that other species could field. Humanity was still the underdog in many ways. They just had better tricks now. He approved the orders and sent them out. The human expeditionary fleet would deploy within 24 hours. They would be ready for whatever came next. As the sun set over Earth Command headquarters, Hamilton allowed himself a moment of reflection. 6 months ago, he had been a simple captain with 1 ship and a loyal crew. He had decloaked in the middle of a desperate battle and changed humanity's place in the galaxy forever. Now he was responsible for an entire fleet and the safety of billions of people. It was a heavy burden. But Hamilton accepted it willingly. This was what leadership meant. This was what duty required. Humanity had proven they could fight. Now they had to prove they could lead. The USS Sentinel appeared out of nothing. One moment the space behind the Krillax hive ship was empty. The next moment a human warship materialized like a ghost becoming solid. The gray hull reflected the light from nearby explosions. Every weapon poured on the ship was aimed directly at the hive ship's vulnerable neural cluster. Kyle Morrison didn't hesitate. His fingers moved across the weapons console with practiced speed. He fired everything at once. The railgun spoke first. Solid metal slugs accelerated to incredible speeds, crossing the distance in less than a second. They punched through the thin membrane covering the neural cluster like bullets through paper. Explosions bloomed inside the hive ship as the slugs tore through delicate organic circuitry. Then the missiles followed. 6 nuclear-tipped warheads streaked toward the target, their engines burning bright white. The hive ship's point defense systems tried to react, but they were too slow. The missiles impacted before the defensive weapons could even lock on. The nuclear explosions turned the rear section of the hive ship into an inferno. White light blazed so bright that the automatic filters on the USS Sentinel's view screen had to activate. The neural cluster, the brain of the entire Krillax swarm, was obliterated in an instant. Greg Hamilton watched the destruction with grim satisfaction. He had been right. That was the control center. Now they would see what happened when you cut off the head of the swarm. The effect was immediate and catastrophic. Throughout the battlefield, Krillak's ships suddenly stopped their coordinated movements. They twitched and jerked like puppets with cut strings. Ships that had been moving in perfect formation crashed into each other. Weapons fired randomly, hitting friend and foe alike. The beautiful, deadly coordination of the swarm dissolved into complete chaos. On the bridge of the Viridian flagship, Admiral Vexthar stared at his tactical display in disbelief. His four eyes widened as he watched the enemy formation collapse. Krillak's ships were spinning out of control, firing at each other, exploding from internal systems failures. It made no sense. Then his sensors picked up something else. A new ship signature directly behind the Krillak's hive ship, a ship that hadn't been there before. The computer identified it as human. The USS Sentinel. Vexthar felt his mandibles click together in shock. The human ship had appeared from nowhere and destroyed the enemy command vessel with a single devastating strike. How was that possible? Where had it come from? How had it gotten so close without being detected? He wasn't the only one asking those questions. Across the entire Council fleet, commanders and captains watched their displays with confusion and amazement. The small human ship they had dismissed as weak and worthless had just changed the entire battle in seconds. Lisa Grant allowed herself a smile as she watched the chaos spread through the enemy ranks. The plan had worked perfectly. Better than perfectly. The Krillak swarm was tearing itself apart. Target destroyed, Morrison reported, pride clear in his voice. Their neural network is down. The swarm is going crazy. Helm, get us out of here, Hamilton ordered. Bring the cloak back online. I don't want to be here when they figure out what happened. The USS Sentinel's engines fired, pushing the ship away from the dying hive ship. The cloaking device powered up again, and the human vessel vanished from sensors. It slipped away like a thief in the night, leaving destruction in its wake. But Hamilton had made his point. The galaxy had seen what humanity could do. There was no taking it back now. Admiral Vexthar recovered from his shock quickly. He was a warrior, and warriors didn't waste opportunities. He opened the fleet-wide communication channel and shouted orders. All ships press the attack. The enemy is confused. Destroy them while they're vulnerable. The Council fleet surged forward. Ships that had been retreating minutes ago now charged into battle with renewed hope. Particle beams and gravity weapons struck the disorganized Krillak's vessels. Without their swarm coordination, the insectoid ships were easy targets. The Krillaks tried to fight back, but they couldn't organize their defense. Individual ships fired their weapons, but there was no strategy, no coordination. They were just panicking insects lashing out blindly. The Council forces cut through them like a hot knife through butter. Some Krillak ships attempted to flee, but the Lumini gravity weapons caught them and crushed them. Others tried to form defensive clusters, but without the neural network to guide them, they were too slow and too disorganized. The Viridian dreadnoughts picked them off one by one. Hamilton watched it all from his invisible position at the edge of the battlefield. Part of him felt satisfaction at seeing the enemy defeated. But another part of him felt sadness at the waste of life. War was terrible even when you won. Grant stood beside him, her expression thoughtful. She understood what he was feeling. They had done what needed to be done, but that didn't make it easier. We saved a lot of lives today, she said quietly. The Council would have lost this battle without us. Maybe the whole war, Hamilton nodded. She was right. The Krillak swarm would have destroyed the Council fleet and then continued their invasion. Billions of innocent people would have died. By acting when they did, the USS Sentinel had prevented that disaster. I know, Hamilton said. But now everyone knows about the cloak. We won't have that advantage again. We had to use it eventually, Grant replied, and we used it at exactly the right moment. No one will ever dismiss humanity again after today. The battle lasted another hour, but the outcome was never in doubt. The Krillak swarm was broken. Hundreds of their ships were destroyed, and the survivors fled in all directions. The great hive ship, its neural cluster destroyed, drifted dead in space. The queen inside was either dead or dying. Her invasion was over. The Council fleet regrouped and began rescue operations. Ships searched for escape pods and survivors. Damage control teams worked to repair critical systems. Medical shuttles transferred wounded to hospital ships. It was a victory, but it had come at a cost. 12 Council ships had been destroyed and many more were damaged. A transmission came through to the USS Sentinel. It was from Admiral Vexthar himself. Hamilton looked at Grant and she shrugged. They both knew what this would be about. Decloak, Hamilton ordered. Let's face the music. The USS Sentinel appeared again, this time among friends. It materialized near the Viridian flagship, its weapons powered down and shields lowered. Hamilton accepted the transmission, and Admiral Vexthar's face appeared on the main screen. The Viridian admiral looked different than before. The arrogance was gone from his eyes. Instead, there was respect and maybe a little embarrassment. He inclined his head in a gesture that Hamilton recognized as a sign of honor among his people. "Captain Hamilton," Vexthar said formally, "the Council owes you a great debt. Your actions today saved this fleet and possibly our entire civilization. I must apologize for my previous treatment of you and your crew. I underestimated humanity. I will not make that mistake again." Hamilton accepted the apology with dignity. He didn't gloat or make the Admiral feel worse. That wasn't his style. He had done what needed to be done, and now it was time to move forward. "Thank you, Admiral," Hamilton replied. "We were honored to fight beside you. Humanity is proud to be part of the Galactic Council." Other commanders joined the communication channel. The Lumini spoke words of gratitude in their musical language. The Kordath commander sent a message of respect. Even species that Hamilton had never met before contacted him to express their amazement and thanks. Morrison was grinning from ear to ear at his console. The other crew members were congratulating each other and shaking hands. They had done it. They had proven that humanity belonged among the stars. Grant leaned close to Hamilton and spoke quietly so only he could hear. "You know this changes everything, right?" she said. "We're not the underdogs anymore. Everyone will be watching us now. Some will want to be our allies. Others will see us as a threat." Hamilton nodded slowly. He had been thinking the same thing. By revealing the cloaking technology, humanity had shown they possessed advanced capabilities that other species lacked. That made them valuable, but it also made them dangerous, "I know," he said quietly. "We've opened a door that can't be closed. For better or worse, humanity is a major player in galactic politics now. Do you regret it?" Grant asked. Hamilton thought about the question. He looked around at his crew, at the celebrating officers and enlisted personnel who had trusted him with their lives. He thought about all the people on Council worlds who would live because the Krillax invasion had been stopped. He thought about humanity's future among the stars. "No," he said finally. "We did the right thing. Humanity was always going to have to prove itself eventually. Today was just the day we chose to do it." Grant smiled and nodded. She had hoped he would say that. Admiral Vexthar requested that Captain Hamilton report to the flagship for a formal debriefing. Hamilton agreed and prepared to take a shuttle over. Before he left the bridge, he looked back at his crew one more time. "Good work, everyone," he said simply. "I'm proud to serve with all of you." The crew responded with a cheer. Today was a day they would remember for the rest of their lives. The day humanity shocked the galaxy and proved they belonged among the stars.